The Zathrak hierophants emerged from the veil of dark space with the slow, ceremonial precision of a species convinced the universe owed them fear. 6 millennia of scripture, prophecy, and ancestral fury led to this single moment, and they treated it with the same sanctity they reserved for the birth of stars. Their war priests stood in glittering obsidian armor, chanting ancient verses written long before humanity had mastered stone tools. Every syllable reaffirmed the righteousness of their cause. Every breath echoed the memory of a pilgrimage fleet they believed humanity destroyed thousands of years ago. To them, humans were not a civilization. They were a historical wound that had festered in myth until it became an unhealed scar across an entire culture. When their armada pierced the solar boundary, they expected terror. Instead, they found confusion radiating from Earth's quiet response networks. The declaration came through every open channel across humanity's networks. A towering hologram drenched in ceremonial markings appeared above capitals, cities, settlements, and orbital hubs. The alien hierophant spoke with a voice amplified by resonant harmonics engineered to intimidate. He proclaimed that humanity would now answer for crimes older than recorded human history. He declared vengeance sanctified, war ordained, and destruction inevitable. For a few moments, silence stretched across continents. Then the first crack of laughter echoed from a monitor room in Geneva. Another followed in a Marine barracks stationed on the Pacific coast. Laughter spilled through group calls, home screens, and command centers alike. Not mocking, just genuine disbelief at being accused of interstellar murder before agriculture had existed. To the Zathrak, that sound was not harmless. They were a species conditioned to revere solemnity and ritual. Laughter, especially during a war proclamation, was the ultimate blasphemy. Their translators strained to categorize it, failing to align the sound with any emotional markers they understood. A second wave of laughter rippled across Earth when the alien hologram's expression tightened in visible confusion. Clips circulated instantly, creating an unstoppable chain reaction as people replayed the declaration with captions. 6,000 years? Seriously? Even world leaders, usually measured, found themselves stifling shocked smiles in private. The accusation was absurd from every angle. Humanity barely knew how to build a wheel when the Zathrak believed they had waged genocidal war. The aliens misinterpreted every second. To them, humanity's reaction confirmed their darkest prophecies. They believed humans had not only committed the ancient act but remembered it proudly. They believed humanity's laughter was a challenge, a cruel taunt from a species that had spent ages growing fiercer in secret. The Hierophant Council, already steeped in paranoia, viewed the reaction as psychological warfare. They tightened their formation around Earth, igniting sacred engines and charging weapons that glowed with celestial symbols. Their war priests took the laughter as an omen, claiming the humans mocked fate itself. Across Earth, however, the reaction settled into baffled calm rather than fear. People questioned the origin of the accusation, trying to understand what event the aliens referred to. Teams of researchers scrambled through databases, historical archives, and cosmological models to find any connection point. What they uncovered hinted at a much simpler truth. 6,000 years ago, Earth's crude defense mechanisms, mere automated interceptors guarding primitive settlements from incoming asteroids, could have mistaken an alien vessel for a threat. If such an encounter occurred, early humans would not have even recognized it. Meanwhile, the aliens had built a religion around the event, turning confusion into mythology and mythology into a doctrine of vengeance. When satellite feeds focused on the alien armada, humanity finally understood the scale of the misunderstanding. The Zathrak had spent thousands of years preparing for a war they believed was inevitable. They had sanctified weapons, built war temples, and groomed generations of soldiers for the promised retribution. They arrived expecting defiance, resistance, or pleas for mercy. Instead, they were met with disbelief wrapped in humor. That disconnect rattled them more deeply than any weapon could have. Humanity didn't laugh because it felt superior. It laughed because the situation was surreal. To be threatened over an event so ancient it predated civilization was almost unreal. The aliens interpreted the reaction as a declaration of dominance. The humans saw it as the universe playing a strange joke. Between those two interpretations, the first sparks of conflict ignited. The aliens believed humanity had mocked their sacred past. Humanity simply could not fathom how a cosmic misunderstanding had grown into a holy crusade. The stage was set not by hatred, but by two civilizations misreading each other completely. Human leadership responded to the alien declaration with a level of coordination that only emerged when the threat was too strange to ignore. The initial laughter faded as global command networks synchronized, linking orbital stations, deep space arrays, and subterranean bunkers into a unified computational mesh. Presidents, generals, analysts, and civilian advisors joined encrypted channels, reviewing every scrap of data regarding the Zathrak fleets. Their ships were ancient yet massive, constructed with ceremonial armor plating etched in symbols that pulsed like living scripture. But beneath the religious ornamentation, humanity detected propulsion systems several generations behind modern standards. The realization spread quickly through command: the Zathrak were dangerous, but they were not an empire prepared for the civilization humanity had become. The first question leaders asked wasn't how to retaliate, it was how to explain the misunderstanding. Anthropologists, astrophysicists, and historians worked side by side to decipher fragments of the aliens' accusations. Data from astronomical models suggested that 6 millennia earlier, a cluster of unidentified objects entered Earth's early orbital path. Primitive automated defense systems, little more than Stone Age guardians with orbital ambitions, might have launched rigid interceptors. No record survived from that era, but the trajectory data lined up too perfectly to ignore. What the Zathrak believed was a deliberate attack was likely a simple automated response from a species barely forming villages. When this explanation reached military leaders, they understood immediately why humanity had laughed. A galactic war triggered by a prehistoric accident bordered on absurdity. Yet absurdity didn't erase danger, and Earth's defense infrastructure shifted into guarded readiness. Orbital bastions unfurled shield arrays that shimmered like translucent oceans. Quantum battleships positioned themselves in anchor formations around Earth, their hulls reflecting the pale glow of the alien fleet. Deep space rail batteries calibrated for non-lethal force in case diplomacy collapsed. Humanity wasn't preparing for conquest, it was preparing to restrain an enemy driven by myth. Across Earth, specialized teams assembled to address the aliens directly. Linguistic AIs refined translations, stripping emotion from every phrase to avoid worsening the tension. Humanity wanted clarity, not escalation. A message was drafted explaining the likely cause of the ancient incident, offering data, timestamps, and cosmological evidence. The transmission framed the entire situation as a tragic misunderstanding magnified by the passage of millennia. Before sending it, however, Command debated whether the aliens were capable of accepting such a truth. Religious narratives reinforced for thousands of years rarely collapse under logic. Still, the message had to be sent. When the broadcast reached the Zathrak flagship, humanity watched their response channels closely. Instead of acknowledgement, their war priests erupted in agitation. Their traditions had never prepared them for the possibility that the defilers were unaware of the sacred conflict. Their entire identity hinged on the belief that humans had knowingly slaughtered their ancestors. Hearing otherwise destabilized the foundations of their faith. They interpreted the explanation as deceit, assuming humanity was attempting to escape punishment through manipulation. To them, the calm tone of the message only reinforced their belief that humans were arrogant enough to mock divine retribution. Meanwhile, Earth's military divisions conducted silent assessments of their own capabilities. Recon units analyzed the alien fleet composition, noting that while the Zathrak had numbers, their weaponry lacked precision and adaptability. Their shielding relied on ritual energy conduits vulnerable to modern disruption techniques. Their command hierarchy operated on rigid doctrine, predictable enough to model within hours. Humanity wasn't boasting internally, it was preparing for the possibility that diplomacy would fail despite best efforts. A rare sense of unity swept through humanity during this period. Nations that often struggled to align found themselves cooperating instinctively. The surreal nature of the threat erased political divides, pulling everyone into the same gravitational center. Defense councils moved seamlessly, and communication barriers that once hindered coordination dissolved. Humanity didn't feel fear, only determination. Not because it viewed itself as unstoppable, but because survival, adaptation, and problem-solving had been its defining traits across every era. When humanity sent its second message, it was concise and deliberate. It emphasized a desire for peace, offered support for investigating the ancient event, and stated clearly that Earth had no interest in unnecessary conflict. It neither pleaded nor threatened. It projected confidence rooted not in superiority but in clarity. The Zathrak, however, interpreted confidence as challenge. In their culture, only a victorious conqueror spoke without hesitation. Their priests declared that humanity's composure confirmed the sacred texts. The defilers feared nothing because they believed nothing could defeat them. Humanity watched their energy signatures spike across the fleet. Engines brightened, weapons aligned, and formations shifted into offensive posture. The misunderstanding that had stretched across 6,000 years now stood on the edge of becoming a real war. Earth understood then that reason alone wouldn't prevent conflict. They were dealing with a civilization that had shaped its identity around a myth. And humanity, for all its progress, could not dismantle a belief system hardened over millennia with simple explanations. Still, the message remained the same: humanity would defend itself with precision, control, and restraint. If the aliens wanted to escalate, humans wouldn't indulge in theatrics or grand declarations. They would act. The laughter had ended. The preparation had begun. The Zathrak armada advanced with ceremonial precision, their ships shifting into the attack formation their ancestors had designed for the long-awaited moment of holy vengeance. Every vessel ignited its war runes, flooding space with crimson radiance meant to intimidate. Humanity watched from orbital platforms as the symbols flared across the fleet like burning scripture. The aliens believed this display would break morale before the first strike, unaware that humanity had moved beyond psychological theatrics centuries ago. Earth's networks registered the incoming barrage before the Zathrak weapons even fully charged, and defense grids shifted into operational mode with clinical efficiency. The first wave erupted from the alien flagships in the form of energy lances stabilized by ritual harmonics. To the Zathrak, these were divine weapons forged through millennia of reverence. To humanity, their signatures resembled obsolete plasma projectiles easily disrupted by modern damping fields. Orbital shields absorbed the impact with negligible strain. The beams splashed like harmless glows across reinforced layers of quantum refractors. As the readings stabilized, commanders issued relaxed confirmations to multiple stations, each acknowledging the interception without urgency. Human soldiers watched the display with steady composure, more concerned with tracking potential escalation patterns than with the attack itself. Across human vessels, personnel discussed the earlier laughter that had confused the aliens so deeply. For many, it wasn't humor directed at the Zathrak but at the absurdity of the situation. The idea of a war launched over a prehistoric misunderstanding felt surreal. Yet now that conflict had begun, their attitude shifted from disbelief to disciplined action. They didn't underestimate the aliens' resolve. Any species willing to wait 6 millennia before striking carried a dangerous level of conviction. But conviction alone didn't negate technological disparity, and humanity's systems were designed to manage threats without resorting to catastrophic force. Human ships initiated a measured response. Instead of firing lethal ordnance, they deployed arrays of antimatter nets capable of unraveling weapons systems without harming crews. The nets drifted into the alien lines and activated silently. Zathrak cannons flickered and died mid-charge, their power cores dissolving into harmless dust-like particles. Elite alien formations attempted counterassaults, launching ornate missile constructs embossed with their sacred texts. Gravity wells generated by human battleships pulled the missiles off course, redirecting them into containment fields that collapsed like folded mirrors around the explosives. Every alien attack met a controlled dissolution, never destruction. Humanity's objective was clear: defend without annihilating. On the alien side, confusion spiraled into dread. Their weapons, sanctified by countless generations, failed without landing a meaningful strike. Their war priests shouted destabilized commands, unable to comprehend how their holy arsenal could be neutralized so effortlessly. Their doctrine taught that the defilers were brutal, reckless beings who would respond to aggression with overwhelming counterattack. Yet humanity displayed a calm discipline completely incompatible with their expectations. It was as if Earth had seen this conflict coming long before the Armada arrived. Human tactical superiority became unmistakable when a squadron of alien frigates attempted to maneuver behind Earth's lunar defense ring. Before they completed their turn, human interceptors shimmered into their path, appearing from quantum slip points with perfect synchronization. They disabled engines and shields simultaneously with non-lethal pulses, leaving the ships drifting harmlessly in place. The entire operation lasted under 6 seconds. Not a single alien casualty was recorded. Every move reflected precision born from centuries of conflict management rather than conquest. As the battle unfolded, human analysts monitored emotional patterns within the alien fleet. Their communication channels fluctuated with rising anxiety. The Zathrak had expected a glorious struggle blessed by their ancestors. Instead, they faced an enemy that fought with restraint so effective it resembled casual indifference. They believed they were fulfilling destiny, yet destiny dissolved before their eyes. Their sacred prophecies provided no guidance for an opponent refusing to kill them. Human commanders understood exactly what was happening. The Zathrak were confronting the collapse of their mythology in real time. But humanity couldn't let sympathy compromise strategy. They had to maintain control until the aliens either surrendered or retreated. A single desperate act from a cornered zealot could still escalate the conflict into catastrophe. By the time the final alien barrage fizzled against Earth's shields, the outcome was undeniable. The Zathrak hadn't just been defeated, they had been dismantled without injury, their war stripped of meaning by a civilization they wrongly assumed was savage. In the silence that followed, the first tremors of despair rippled through their fleet as they realized the foundation of their crusade no longer stood. Humanity's next priority was uncovering the precise event that sparked the ancient Zathrak hatred. With the alien offensive neutralized, Earth redirected vast analytical resources toward reconstructing the 6-millennia-old incident. Deep space observatories, archaeological satellites, and quantum archives were synchronized to search through cosmic debris patterns. The work wasn't an act of curiosity. It was essential to understanding the psychology behind the alien crusade. If humanity could identify the truth, it might diffuse the fanaticism still burning in parts of the Zathrak fleet. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a dormant cluster of ancient space debris orbiting near the asteroid belt. It had been catalogued centuries earlier but never investigated thoroughly. When examined with modern scanners, fragments revealed alloy compositions identical to the alien pilgrimage ships described in Zathrak texts. Humanity recovered what remained of their hull markers, then traced micro-scoring patterns and impact fractures. These patterns didn't resemble battle scars. They matched the automated defense behaviors of early human orbital guardians. Primitive systems built to protect scattered settlements from meteor showers had triggered automatically, without any intelligence behind the strike. The revelation aligned perfectly with the reconstructed trajectory paths from 6,000 years ago. What caught humanity off guard was a deeper anomaly embedded within the fragments. At the atomic level, evidence showed that the Zathrak vessels had not been peaceful pilgrims drifting silently through space. Their engines emitted an aggressive radiation signature typical of early Zathrak military craft. Logs reconstructed from encrypted fragments confirmed it. The aliens had fired first. Their ancestors had detected early human settlements and, fearing the unknown, unleashed preemptive strikes. The automated human systems retaliated without conscious direction. Over thousands of years, the aliens buried their initial aggression and rewrote the story into one where they were victims of unprovoked destruction. Human command debated how to present this information. Revealing the truth could shatter the Zathrak identity, which was built entirely on the belief that humanity had committed a sacred atrocity. But hiding it risked endless cycles of hostility. Eventually, Earth chose honesty. A data capsule containing the salvaged logs, visual reconstructions, and forensic analysis was broadcast directly to the Zathrak flagship. No embellishment, no interpretation, only facts supported by irrefutable evidence. The moment the information reached them, seismic shifts rippled through the alien command structure. War priests who once spoke with absolute conviction staggered under the weight of the truth. Their holy text had taught them that vengeance was the foundation of their existence. Their ancestors had painted themselves as martyrs, transforming their own aggression into divine tragedy. Now the truth dissolved the cornerstone of their culture. Their doctrines unraveled, layer by layer, as leaders confronted the uncomfortable realization that they had spent 6,000 years venerating a false narrative. Inside the Zathrak fleet, confusion escalated into spiritual collapse. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for sacred retribution found themselves questioning the purpose of their existence. Historians, once guardians of myth, witnessed their life's teachings crumble. Even the high priest hesitated, no longer able to interpret ancient scripture as absolute truth. A civilization that had defined itself by the need to punish humanity now had no enemy left to condemn. Humanity didn't exploit their vulnerability. Instead, its next transmission was careful and deliberate. It acknowledged the pain of cultural dissonance and offered cooperation in uncovering more historical fragments. The message emphasized that the past couldn't be undone but could be understood. Humanity assured them that the truth did not weaken their identity. It freed them from a burden they had carried longer than any species should endure. The tone was neither condescending nor victorious. It was a gesture intended to stabilize a civilization in crisis, not deepen its fractures. The Zathrak leadership splintered. Some welcomed the clarity, relieved that the war they had been raised to fight was never justified. Others resisted, clinging to doctrine even as it disintegrated. Their internal conflict escalated until a faction demanded one final path: either humanity dominate them fully, proving fate had chosen the stronger species, or humanity step away, leaving them to rebuild without interference. Earth responded with neither dominance nor withdrawal. Instead, it presented a final offer, an agreement grounded in truth rather than myth. If the Zathrak sought reconciliation, humanity would help them recover their real history. If they chose to retreat, humanity would respect their journey. But Earth would not allow war to continue over a lie. That message created a silent crossroads. The Zathrak stood between the collapse of their belief system and the possibility of a future shaped by truth rather than legend. The next decision they made would define whether their civilization evolved, or broke entirely. The truth fractured the Zathrak armada into unstable factions. While many struggled to accept the collapse of their doctrine, one extremist sect clung to the ancient myth with desperate zeal. They believed surrendering to truth meant erasing their ancestors' honor. In their eyes, destruction was preferable to living with the revelation that their entire crusade had been built on a lie. This faction broke formation, powering weapons that pulsed bright enough to saturate every human sensor in the region. Their commanders broadcast a final vow, declaring they would fulfill the prophecy through sacrifice if victory was impossible. They intended to ignite their ship's cores simultaneously, creating a chain detonation capable of crippling Earth's orbital network. Humanity detected the spike in energy signatures instantly. The readings indicated a coordinated self-destruct cascade, not a conventional strike. Human commanders issued immediate response directives, but they didn't react with panic or aggression. Instead, they initiated containment protocols crafted precisely for catastrophic scenarios. Quantum singularity traps deployed from multiple stations, unfolding like invisible nets across the battlefield. The traps distorted space around the unstable alien ships, capturing their energy output before critical mass formed. Within moments, the Zathrak vessels froze, suspended inside static pockets that nullified every ignition command. The failed detonation was so sudden and complete that even the aliens involved seemed stunned. For the extremist sect, the failure triggered panic. They expected destruction. They expected a final act of devotion. Instead, they were immobilized without injury. The realization that humanity could prevent annihilation effortlessly stripped them of their last belief, that they could control their own end. They transmitted frantic messages, demanding release or death. Humanity granted neither. Instead, they disabled the remaining weapons and relocated the immobilized ships to a safe distance, ensuring no chain reaction could spread to the rest of the armada. Once stability returned, humanity issued a broadcast intended for every Zathrak vessel. The message began not with threats or boasts, but with clarity. It stated that Earth would not destroy a species for ancient mistakes, nor allow mass suicide to dictate the future. The voice delivering the message explained that mercy wasn't weakness, and control wasn't tyranny. Humanity defended itself because it had to, not because it sought dominance. Every action taken during the conflict, every interception, every non-lethal defense, every restraint, was intentional. The message emphasized that the universe had enough scars without adding another born from misunderstanding. The Zathrak listened in silence. Their priests, stripped of certainty, could no longer invoke ancient verses to justify war. Soldiers who once believed death in battle would guarantee honor now questioned whether survival carried greater meaning. Scribes responsible for preserving doctrine found themselves confronted with the reality that the truth they ignored had nearly destroyed them. Slowly, symbols of surrender illuminated across the fleet, soft, muted pulses replacing the once blazing war runes. Each ship powered down its weapons and transmitted the same message: cessation of hostilities, unconditional acknowledgement of the evidence, and willingness to negotiate new terms of coexistence. Human ships approached without intimidation. They scanned the Zathrak vessels for damage, ensuring life support systems remained stable. On several crippled frigates, human drones delivered emergency supplies, not as tribute but as a gesture that transcended conflict. The sight bewildered Zathrak crews who had been taught for generations to expect brutality. They had prepared to face a ruthless enemy, yet the reality standing before them was a civilization that wielded power with surgical discipline and compassion that bordered on terrifying. Their leaders realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology. It was the ability to hold overwhelming force without losing judgment. As negotiations began, the Zathrak admitted the depth of their error. Their culture would need to recalibrate, their teachings rewritten, and their identity rebuilt from a foundation grounded in truth rather than legend. It was a monumental task, but for the first time in thousands of years, they faced the future without a crusade chaining them to the past. Humanity promised assistance, not as victors dictating terms but as partners ensuring stability. Across the galaxy, word spread of the conflict's resolution. Species who observed from afar whispered in awe. They had witnessed humans neutralize an ancient holy war with precision, mercy, and unshakable composure. A simple phrase echoed quietly through the outer systems, carried from world to world by traders and scouts. They laugh at war because they don't fear it. It wasn't mockery, it was a warning wrapped in admiration. Humanity had evolved beyond the need for conquest, yet possessed the will to end any threat with unsettling ease. And in the wake of the Zathrak surrender, the galaxy finally understood why.